Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the premium and public video forecast discussion for September 30th, 2015. We're going to merge them today because I want to kind of touch base with everyone and kind of get the word out of exactly what's happening here, what's changed, what's evolving, and what to expect as far as we know right now. So I decided that we'll just merge the two videos. I'll show you everything that I normally do for premium members, all the while giving you the best information possible that we have right now. Now, currently we have the steady heavy rainfall currently over New England, lifting northward. This moved through this morning with anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain over the region. Some areas ended up with a little bit less, about half an inch. Now, for the rest of the day on through tomorrow, we'll be dealing with these scattered showers that are developing along and ahead of the cold front that is moving through the region. This cold front that's going to be moving through is going to be one pesky cold front lingering over the region, and one we're going to be dealing with all the way through Saturday. That factor alone will produce significant rainfall throughout the region, starting tomorrow night all the way on through Saturday. And if we weren't talking about Hurricane Joaquin, we'd be talking about rain lingering on into Monday, which would lead to a very heavy rainfall event. Unfortunately, based on what we're seeing now in the observations and the latest model guidance, we're dealing with a far more dangerous situation. Now, this is the current water vapor satellite picture, and I wanted to do the water vapor satellite picture rather than show you this model and that model and kind of get you overwhelmed. Let's step back and look at what we're actually dealing with here. What we have here is a block developing over eastern Canada. We have a bit of a ridge right here. Here's our trough, and notice it's starting to intensify, and that leads to our ridge building. Notice, see the dry air building out here? So we have a trough intensifying over eastern Canada, a ridge developing over the northwestern Atlantic. We have a trough here that bounces out the pressure dynamics here. So this trough is around Iceland and basically to the southeast of Greenland. So this combination here sets up the block in the northern Atlantic. Meanwhile, you have your trough out here with the subtropical jet stream, and here is Hurricane Joaquin that has continued to drop southwest under the previous influence of the departing trough and the building ridge. Meanwhile, we have the piece of the polar jet stream starting to break off here, and this part here is what sets up the upper level low over the southeast. So our current setup as we stand right now is that we have our cold front moving through with there's a tremendous amount of moisture from the Pacific cutting through the Gulf of Mexico and up the East Coast. So this alone right here, combined with the cold front that's stalling with this block setting up, would lead to tremendous amount of rainfall through the forecast period. Now, when I say rainfall, I don't mean constant rainfall 24/7, but waves of rainfall on and off, heavy at times, tropical-like downpours, the heaviest rainfall focused along the coast. Over the interior, you'll get yours too, but obviously a little bit less than what you would see over the coast. So that's factor one. What we have established in here, in this environment, is one, notice the upper level development here of Joaquin. You see how it's developing this outflow, this upper level high pressure? That's going to protect it from shear initially, and that's what's going to allow it to intensify. This factor was not in place yesterday, and it was one of the major factors that changed in the dynamics of this storm. Under northerly shear, rather strong northerly shear, this storm was able to intensify. Now it's going to be under favorable conditions for about 48 hours, which means it has potential to become a rather strong hurricane. And we'll zero in on that a little bit closer as we jump to the next satellite picture in just a moment. But notice the southwesterly flow here. As this trough intensifies and this ridge intensifies, that should trap Joaquin and force it to move to the north and then finally towards the coast. Caveat here, the European model guidance keeps Joaquin out over the Atlantic and curves it out into the northern Atlantic. That solution is possible if this trough does not continue to intensify, this ridge continues to not build. you end up with a weaker blocking pattern. It is able to fight the upper level low over the southeast then, and then Joaquin kind of meanders out here in the Atlantic, and then finally it gets kicked out as the upper level low is kicked out because the blocking isn't as strong. It's a possible scenario, but I don't think it's going to happen based on what I'm seeing with the observations here. And I would not be surprised if the European model guidance continues to trend further and further to the west with this setup. Of course, we'll continue to watch that development as this trough here becomes a major player in exactly what happens to the overall forecast. As far as Joaquin itself, notice the center of circulation was constantly to the north of all the convection, and now we're seeing that convection wrap around the low level center. Notice the high cloud tops, minus 80 degrees Celsius is very cold for cloud tops. And what that basically tells us is that we're having tremendous lifting, and there's potential here we might actually see an eye starting to form here with Joaquin this morning as of 10 a.m. So that is pretty impressive in itself as far as the development of this storm. Again, you can see the outflow starting to develop. Notice the cirrus is starting to fan out here. It's becoming a much more developed hurricane, and a rather large one at that, as it continues to drift to the southwest. Eventually, it will start to turn to the west and northwest over the next 24 hours. Now, as far as 66 hours out, this is the latest GFS at 06Z, and you can see at 66 hours, the blocking setup that is evolving here. Here's your upper level low with a negatively tilted trough, catching our hurricane. Here's your block, part 1, part 2, part 3. Your upper level low out here, balancing out the pressure field. And so, unless this ridge is weaker, this hurricane has no choice but to turn north and northwest towards the coastline. Now, with that being the case, I want to be very clear here. A lot of the models are starting to focus on landfall between, let's say, the Delmarva Peninsula to northern North Carolina. Those of you in New Jersey and Long Island, do not let your guard down. One, even if the land falls further to the south, it's going to be a large storm and capable of impacting you in terms of course, very heavy rainfall, but also sustained strong winds from the northeast of at least tropical storm strength, and yes, some degree of a storm surge. How much will depend on how strong this hurricane gets and the specific track. On that note, if this hurricane really becomes large in size, as shown in some of the model guidance, and intensifies to a degree that some of the model guidance are showing, down to the 930s and 40s, it's going to take some time to turn northward, and that may mean a further north landfall over portions of central and southern New Jersey, Delaware, or Maryland. So we'll have to watch that very, very carefully. So don't, just because you see the storm track towards Virginia does not mean you're out of the woods in New Jersey, Long Island, and southern Connecticut. So we'll dive into the forecast based on what we're seeing from the WPC. And again, for this evening, we'll see the cold front push off the coast with periods of showers. The steady heavy rain is over for now. For tonight, those scattered showers linger on through tomorrow. By tomorrow morning, we'll start to see that cold front stall out, and you'll see rain starting to redevelop along the immediate coast, and that will continue to expand back to the west as we move on through the day. Obviously, more scattered showers and lighter precipitation over the interior, heavier rainfall along the coast, and that continues on through Friday morning as that rain shield expands. Meanwhile, here comes our hurricane. So the forecast from the National Weather Service has Joaquin approaching this low pressure system. Now, the interaction of these two low pressure systems is going to be very key to watch. But as you can see, moving forward, what happens here is that here comes Joaquin, here comes our low pressure system, where our upper level low here. These two features become trapped and become one storm. And then the question is whether or not that low pressure system ends up backing into the mid-Atlantic. Does it make landfall around Virginia? Is it a hybrid low? Is it a pure tropical low pressure system? A lot of these questions have not been answered yet. So I would say be prepared. Definitely take your precautions, get your batteries. If you have any homes along the coast, board your homes up and prepare for the worst. And then if it's not as bad, at least you'll be prepared, because this storm, even with all its volatility, still will have tremendous impacts starting tomorrow night and continuing all the way on through this upcoming weekend. And again, this is on Monday morning. The storm's sitting out here still, creating very strong winds, heavy rainfall, and doesn't really exit the region until Tuesday morning, with some lingering showers on Tuesday morning. So significant impacts regardless of the track of this hurricane. Be prepared for significant flash flooding, urban flooding, wind damage. Power outages should certainly be a threat. Coastal flooding, even if the hurricane does not make landfall in your location, coastal flooding will be a threat because you have a persistent easterly wind at 15 to 30 miles per hour, increasing to 20 to 40 miles per hour on Friday and Saturday. So even in that factor, you're still going to be dealing with coastal flooding. And then, of course, based on the track, we'll see exactly what type of storm surge we're dealing with by the time we get to Sunday into Monday. So that is your forecast discussion for today. Hope I answered some of your questions. Some of the questions out there on Twitter I can't answer right now because we just don't have the data to answer things like, well, how much of a storm surge in my neck of the woods, in my area. But I would say is prepare for a storm surge of at least 3 to 4 feet here on the conservative side, and then we'll see exactly how strong this hurricane is. Could be a lot higher, could be less, depending on the track. Okay. As far as when is the exact time of the landfall, again, that depends on the size of the hurricane, the track, the development of the upper level low. So as you can see, there's a lot that we still have to work out here. But the overall theme here is that this will have a significant impact on the northern mid-Atlantic from New York City on south through the Philadelphia metro, U2 in southern Connecticut as well. As you move towards the interior, hey, you're still dealing with heavy rain at times, and you're also dealing with winds sustained at 15 to 30 miles per hour with anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of rain, which is still a pretty big impact. Along the coast, 6 to 10 inches of rain. That obviously is going to lead to some urban flooding. So be prepared, take some preparation here, and as always, stay safe out there.